Perfect people do not exist. You can write a successful story. Take us on that journey. Hello, fellow creative writers. It's Katherine again, here for part 2 of our discussion about creative writing. Now today we will be talking about character. There are, in my opinion, 5 things to remember when you're building a character. So let's start right at the top. Every character needs an objective. All the characters you're writing need to want something. They need goals, and we need to see them making choices and decisions that lead to action, which leads to new information, which leads to them having to make new choices and new decisions, which then leads to more action. That's how we write a plot. Your character wants something, they try to go get it, perhaps they fail in some way, they come up with a new method to get what they want, and we follow them on that journey. Now, your objective can be very abstract. Your characters just might need love. They might want freedom or safety, redemption, vengeance. They might be seeking the truth. And then you can have more concrete, immediate objectives that vary from moment to moment and chapter to chapter. One word of caution in all of this is to be careful about writing from a point of view that is merely a lens. What I mean is, if we're simply viewing the world through a character's eyes and they're not making decisions and they're not pursuing goals, we don't really need that character. Every character on the page should have a goal. So if you don't know why this character is in a scene, they don't belong there. Number 2, your characters should have strengths and flaws. Nobody wants to read about a perfect character because perfect people do not exist, and we will therefore find it difficult to fully connect to a character that seems too good to be true. We all have things that we as people struggle with, and we are working to better ourselves, to overcome our difficulties, our internal flaws, and so your characters too should always be working to overcome their flaws. A flaw does not necessarily have to be this big, bad, negative thing, and it's not necessarily your character's fault that they have a particular flaw. Make sure you're always asking yourself, how is my character view themselves? How is my character viewed by other people? How are they working to overcome those difficulties and the things they struggle with? Because that's the meat of the story. We want to see a character change. Next, your character should have a personality, behaviors, characterization that has rules. It needs to be consistent. I'll leave it up to you to build your character, to give them weird quirks and flaws and strengths and things they like and don't like. But the biggest complaint you'll hear about a character is that their characterization, who they are and how they normally behave, isn't consistent. So if we establish early on in the story that character A can't or won't tell a lie, and then later on they're telling lies, we won't believe, literally, in your character as a real person. Now, your character can and should change. We as people change all the time, but we should see it happen. Remember, we're going on a journey with your characters, and so the changes that we see in them should be the result of their choices and the result of choices other people made that impacted them and forced them to change. Not a random swap in personality to kind of suit the needs of the plot. So, that being said, if character A needs to tell a lie, take us on that journey. Why do they need to tell a lie right now? What are the stakes? What happens if they don't tell a lie? Okay, they're telling the lie. How does it make them feel? Take us with you. How do the other characters view them when they're telling the lie? Do they believe them? Does one character know they're lying? How does that impact that relationship now? And where is character A going to go from here? Do they have to keep telling lies in order to get their objective? Are they going to not tell lies anymore? It's up to you. Remember, it's a journey. I just love that word, journey, buzzword. Next, relationships of all sorts. So basically, when you're writing, Think about how certain characters would interact with one another. For example, I speak to my parents very differently than how I would speak to my best friend of 20 years versus how I would speak to my colleagues or my boss. So how does your character feel about certain members of their family or their circle of friends or just the people they have day-to-day interactions with, and how does that color their interactions? So would character B use slang and lingo around character C, but not character A because that's an adult and we don't use slang around adults? Just think about it. Lastly, big number 5 is that your character should have an arc. And this is just my very broad way of saying that by the end of the story, be it a 5-page story or a 500-page story, your character needs to have either succeeded or failed in their objective. And it is okay for your character to fail. We just need to see why. Did their flaws hold them back? Did their relationship with another character hinder them in some way? What's their next step? What did they learn? How did they change? And how did their actions or lack of action impact and change those around them? And do they recognize it? You can write a successful story where your character pursued an objective and failed if they learn, they realize that they failed, and they process that. And maybe we have a slightly hopeful ending where they know what they're going to do differently tomorrow. Just what has your character learned? How have they changed? I hope this was helpful to you. Get out there and write. I look forward to our next little discussion. Have fun, guys.